I'm Lisa Unwin, and a few years ago I set up an organisation called She's Back. She's Back is all about shining a light on the potential of women who've had careers, taken a step back, and are now ready to throw themselves into those careers again. The world is full of women who've got untapped potential. Women join the professions, be it advertising, banking, law, you name it, in very, very large numbers, the same numbers as men at a junior level. But you look at the top of those organisations and suddenly the women have all disappeared. Women have successful careers for a period of time, and then what happens typically is that they start trying to have to juggle, and juggling between being a mother, being a parent and carer, and holding down a career. And very often the two just don't go hand in hand, and women step back for a period of time and either leave the workforce completely or work below their potential. So what you have is this forgotten army of people who are very well trained, hugely experienced, who in a number of years are ready to go back and contribute again to the economy, and yet they're forgotten. And then what happens when women turn around and think, actually, I'm a bit freer now, I could go back and get my career back on track. There's a hidden voice in the back of their head saying, but maybe you've left it too long, maybe not quite as good as you used to be, and they lack confidence. And I know this because it was my story. I graduated from university, had what I thought was a really successful career. I joined a big professional services firm, Arthur Andersen. I had the ambition that I would make partner by 34, and I did. It was 2008, and I was expecting a promotion. And then one week, I found out I wasn't getting promoted. And the same week, my nanny resigned. And I just thought, you know what? Maybe now's the time to go look after the children myself. No one values me in this job. It's all getting a bit difficult with the juggling, so I'll step back and take a break. I didn't realise at the time it was a break, it just felt as though I was stepping back. And it was listening to BBC Women's Hour when they were talking about the Women's Hour power list, and I was busy in the kitchen making cupcakes probably, that I thought, hang on, that could have been me. I could have been on that power list, but the way things are going at the moment, I'll never be anywhere near that. And that drove me to start to rethink what I was going to do with my life and how I'd make sure that I wasn't forgotten and lost. I started talking to other women in the playground when I was picking the kids up from school. And I realised that I wasn't the only one in this situation. We all sort of realised that we were really underplaying ourselves and that we'd become part of this forgotten army and that it was really unjust. And so we set up She's Back. The first step is to purge yourself of all of the negative voices in your head that are holding you back. And one of the best ways of doing that is to find somebody you really trust, who you used to work with or who knows you well, and just talk to them about how you're feeling and talk to them about why you might think it's too late or you won't cope. And they can help you unpick some of those destructive, negative barriers that you're putting up for yourself. Slowly but surely, you will remember how you used to feel when you were contributing in the economy, when you did have a big job, when you did love going out to work and you were more than just everybody's mother. And with every small step, I think your confidence will just grow. Step 2 is then you've got to think about you as a brand. Now, everybody groans when I say that. So think about your brand as what people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, I've stolen that phrase from Jeff Bezos, but I still think it's a really good phrase. So what do you want people to say about you? What you really need is 3 or 4 paragraphs that describe you and what you have to offer to an employer that you can write down. And you also need to be able to take those 3 or 4 paragraphs and turn them into 3 bullet points. So you need an elevator pitch, an escalator pitch, and a walk around the park pitch. So then the question is where to start with your job search. And this might sound counterintuitive, but the last place you look is at job ads. You're 5 times more likely to find work through your connections than you are through either a recruiter or certainly through a job advert. And that's because partly when employers are looking to hire someone, really the last thing they do is place a job ad. The first thing they'll do is ask people that they already know if they know someone who could do the job. So your first port of call should be your networks and thinking about who do you already know that might make introductions to somebody who could potentially introduce you to somebody who could get you an interview. What you'll find when you start thinking about your connections is that 6 degrees of separation absolutely works. There's a number of things to think about. Number one is, because you're reasonably old, this is a good thing. You have met lots of people along the way. You've worked with many, many people. You've worked for many people. You've probably had lots of clients in the past. And by the way, another good tip here is that you can find them all. Most of them will be on LinkedIn. Now the rubber really does hit the road, because you've got to do 2 things. And if you thought the start of this process was scary, this is even worse. Number one, if you're not on it, you have to get on LinkedIn. Not only are the jobs there, the people who are hiring are there. You don't need to explain the fact you've had a career break. You just put on what you have done. And by the way, you need a photograph, and it cannot be of you having a cocktail on holiday. Don't clog up people's emails if you can help it. Pick the phone up and call people. Obviously, you don't need to phone up and say, I'm looking for a job, have you got one? But what you can say is, remember me, haven't spoken for ages, how are you doing? Would love to know what you're up to. And then it's perfectly fine to say, look, would you have a little bit of time? I'm looking for some advice. I'm thinking about getting my career back on track, and I'd love your take on the best way of going about it. Or I'd love your take on what's happening in the industry, or haven't worked at so-and-so for quite a while. How are things there? Can we set up a coffee, virtual coffee, obviously? Soon you'll be able to go for a walk in the park, and you might be able to sit on a park bench, you never know. Ironically, COVID is our friend here. I mean, not only is everybody at home, we're all sharing this experience. That the formality has been taken out of the system. People are used to doing Zoom calls, so they're used to seeing everybody face to face, and everyone's in their homes. I mean, sometimes you can see people's washing behind them, and the dog comes and interrupts, or the kids walk in. That's so much less formal than when you used to organise to see someone. One thing I want to leave you with is that you will undoubtedly be better at your job when you go back than you were when you left. You're older and wiser, honestly. You've got more perspective. You've got more balance. You can judge what's important and what's not. And the other thing I would just leave you with is the thought that actually employers are waking up to this talent pool. They recognise increasingly that there's all these women out there, the unforgotten army that we talked about, who've got valuable experience, who often represent their customer base, who come back with enthusiasm and energy and perspective, and would be a great asset to their teams. So listen, the door's open. You've just got to push it.